Okay, so today is going to be a little bit different to my normal videos in that this isn't steampunk at all. This is talking about the Harry Potter movies. Now, this is a video that I've it's a subject I've kind of wanted to touch on right from when I saw the movies when I saw the first movie would have been 2001 when it came out, so I would have been about probably 10 or 11 years old. And this is an aspect of the movie that made me irrationally angry as a child. Now, I was quite a strange child. I had a considerable interest in architecture at the time, and I was an avid reader. And from reading the Harry Potter books, I'd very much formulated a vision of what I thought the Dursleys' house should look like. Now, Dursley's house is one of the first things you see in the film when they deliver baby Harry to the front door, and my first thought on seeing that in the film was Dumbledore and McGonagall were absolutely pretty much perfect as per the film, but the house was all wrong. Now, I was going to do a series of videos like this because I was also going to do one about how Hogwarts in the movies did not match the book descriptions. I read the books with a view to making these videos and extracted the relevant parts for the Dursleys' house. I was going to do the same thing for Hogwarts, but I very quickly realised that the descriptions for Hogwarts are incredibly inconsistent. The greenhouses, for example, are on at least two different sides of the castle in different books, based on where they go to via the greenhouses. So, I mean, that can be explained away by the fact that it does say in the books that Hogwarts is an intensely magical building and things do move around. That actual wording is used, that things seem to move around a lot, is used in the first book. But the Dursleys' house, there isn't that get out on, because the Dursleys' house is a muggle dwelling. It does not have any magical get out for any of the things that are wrong, and it is wrong in the movies on quite a number of different levels. So, first of all, this is going to be a bit of a venture. Obviously, you can see behind me here, or it might be up here, I'm not quite sure where it appears in these videos, that I have built a 3D model using SketchUp of how I imagine the Dursleys' house should look. Now, this is based on book description. It is also based on a certain level of knowledge of British house building and British architecture, which I suspect may have been lacking, especially seeing as a large percentage of the production team were American. Now, the first thing to say about the house they used in the movies is that the house is nowhere near big enough. The second thing is to say is that the house is nowhere near old enough. Now, I'll start with its not being nowhere near big enough. Now, we know that Mr. Dursley, Vernon Dursley, is a company director. Now, I don't know what that means in the US, but in the UK, that is a high salary position. I don't know whether he's the managing director or whether he is simply a director, but he's a director of a firm that makes drills. We also know that from the book description that his office is on the 9th floor, so we can assume that it's a fairly large company. He is going to be earning quite a lot of money. So he would buy... I mean, it's mentioned many times through the book the expensive gifts he buys for Dudley. It's mentioned about that they would go this one deal that they were going to seal possibly in the second book would have led to them buying a holiday home in Majorca. This man was on a high salary and probably got high bonuses as well. Admittedly, his wife Petunia did not work, that's made clear in the books. But even on a single salary as a company director, they would have been able to afford a nicer house than the one shown in the movie. The second thing with that house is it is nowhere near old enough, and there's a couple of parts to this. The first is that Harry was born, as per the books, in 1981. The house that's shown in the movies, my estimate is that is a house that dates from around the early to mid 1990s based on the architectural style. So, although it is feasible that they could have lived in that house at the time the stories are set, it does not fit, because we know that in 1981, 1982, yes, it would be 1981, when the Potters were killed by Voldemort, that they brought Harry to number 4 Privet Drive, and then the story restarts in number 4 Privet Drive. So therefore, the absolute newest that house could be, even without speculation, which is what I'm going to get into next, is 1981. If they bought a brand new house and hung on to it, the newest that house could be is built in 1981. The house in the movie is definitely newer than that. It does not fit. Now, we can, with some speculation, knowledge of British architecture, etc., narrow that down further, make that house have to be even older. And this is based on mainly on book description, but also on my general knowledge of domestic architecture in the UK. Now, one of the things that's mentioned in the book, and it actually forms a key element in book 1, it appears again in book 5, is the fact that there is a fireplace in the kitchen. Now, houses in the UK have not been built with... Now, assuming that it's a house on an estate, which we know the Dursleys is, it's not a custom-built house, as far as we know. It is not an architect-designed one-off house. All the way through it is given the impression that it's part of a large estate. Possibly quite an exclusive estate, but quite a large estate. Now, the latest time that they put fireplaces in at all in houses was sort of about... functional ones was about the 1960s. Kitchen fireplaces, and sort of for kitchen ranges or solid fuel boilers, you'd probably have to go back to the 1950s. So I would say the latest the Dursleys' house could have been built, if they'd have knocked through a kitchen and a dining room and said that was a kitchen, based on Harry's 11-year-old understanding as the almost as the narrator of the book, the latest that house could have been built is the 1960s. Now, it could be any date virtually from sort of medieval cottages right up to 1960. But there's something else we can narrow it down on, and this is where we do get into a bit more speculative narrowing down. And that is that it is on a road called Privet Drive. Now, generally, roads called drives and walks, because there's also a mention of Wisteria Walk, and this and using plant names in the names of housing estates, was very much a thing from the 1930s through to about the 1950s. So I would put a date on the Dursleys' house, a date of construction between 1930 and 1960. Now, what else do we know about the Dursley's house from the book? We know it was 4-bedroomed, or do we? It's described as having 4 bedrooms, but we also know that Harry is a bit of an unreliable narrator, and at the time he was 10/11 years old. I suspect the house had more bedrooms, but Harry counted a bedroom as a room with a bed in it, a room that could be used as a bedroom. So if Uncle Vernon had a home office, which he most likely did as a company director, it's likely that Harry would have seen that as Uncle Vernon's office and not as a bedroom. So I think it could have 5 bedrooms. If Petunia had, say, a sewing or a craft room, it could have 6 bedrooms. The house that you see behind me is a 5-bed floor plan. It is based on the floor plan of an actual house that I took from Rightmove. Now, the house in question is a 1930s house, red brick. We know Harry's bedroom is this room just here at the front, because it mentions about him being able to see up and down Privet Drive from his bedroom window. We know there is a street lamp outside, because it is mentioned in the book. We know the garden is surrounded by hedges, because Harry has to cut them. We know there's a wall at the front, because Professor McGonagall says about sitting as a cat on a wall. And we know there's bushes under the front window, because Harry hides behind them to hear the news in Book 5. We don't know if there's a garage. I've added a garage purely because to work out the upstairs floor plan, there are not enough rooms mentioned downstairs. So I suspect there is an integral garage with a bedroom above. Now that bedroom has its window out the side just here. Now, I've also added on the back here a large sort of sunroom 1970s extension, which in my mind fits the Dursleys perfectly, because it is an ugly, tasteless extension, which is exactly the kind of thing they would have. But there is no book description for that, and it might just as easily be removed. The house still fits the description either way. Now, I'm going to take a little look inside. I've not put fully detailed interiors, I just more want to show you how I've designed it. So this is as I say, a 1930s to 1950s style of house on quite a large plot, because we know there was a greenhouse that's mentioned in the book, in the first book. We don't know if there was a shed or not, that's just my embellishment. As I say, a bit like the garage, that we don't know if it was there or not. We know there was a downstairs toilet, because it's mentioned about letters being forced in through the window. So we have a downstairs toilet included. So let's take a little look inside. So we'll go downstairs first, and we'll do the downstairs floor plan. So we have a large living room at the front with its own fireplace and chimney. As I say, not detailed. We have a dining room or living room. These rooms could be interchangeable at the back with dual aspect. Now, you could argue for double doors through that wall, and that would more fit the book description potentially, because it then allows this to be seen by Harry as one room. So there could be double doors through that wall. We have a kitchen. Now we know the kitchen was quite large because it was large enough to eat breakfast in. You could argue for the kitchen being knocked through to the dining room. I don't have a problem with that. Personally, I think the kitchen would have been extended out the back into this extension that we have. I will just bring the extension back, and then we'll go back in again, and I'll show you sort of what we could do there. I'll just drop that section plane a little bit. There we go, so you can see the plan a bit better. So At the moment I've just got this sort of loggia type area at the back, or logia depending on how you want to talk about that, and this sunroom wrapping around the back here. Obviously that window could have been knocked out, that door could have been knocked out. You could argue for that coming up the extension extending all the way across, and a larger kitchen. As I say, we know it is a dining kitchen. Just there would be a fireplace, probably with an old boiler in it, or it could have been disused and just have sort of cupboards put into it, or it could have a fire still sat in it. We don't really know. Another thing with this kind of plan is it does have, if I just drop this again, a reasonably large understairs cupboard, which for someone to be using it as a sort of bedroom, it would have to be a reasonable size. This is quite large because of the shape of the staircase, which you'll see more when we go upstairs. If I just bring the section plane back up again, it'll make a little more sense. A bit too far. So, we have a dining room, we have a lounge or a dining room, or vice versa. We have a kitchen. I've added the garage, but that isn't really book canon. I've just sort of proposed that to make up the right number, enough rooms downstairs. We've got a sort of back corridor bit and a downstairs toilet. Again, we know there's a downstairs toilet. The back corridor is a bit sort of it's just based on the floor plan that I used for this model. It's not book canon, but neither are the sizes of the rooms, or whether it's got double doors or not, or really whether it has a lounge and a dining room or together. Now, I may put some more detail into the interior and do a follow-up video to this, but next we'll take a little look upstairs. So, we have Vernon and Petunia's bedroom. We have the bedroom for the favoured son, Dudley. We have Dudley's second bedroom, which eventually becomes Harry's room, and then we have a guest room. Or we could have a guest room, and Dudley's room. I'm not sure. We know Harry's room's at the front, we don't know where the arrangement of the other rooms. Now, I've also given a small room at the back here to be Uncle Vernon's home office. We have a bathroom, of course, and then we have the stairs which come up straight up, but on quite a shallow angle, as was typical for this style of house. I haven't added in the railing here. That's something I'm meaning to do. The stairs could dogleg. Again, that was possible on this style of house, but the house that I used as inspiration for this, that I found on Rightmove, did not have that, so I didn't include it here. As I say, the descriptions in the book give a certain amount of detail, but obviously not everything. So this is my vision of the Dursleys' house. I'd like people to comment on it, really. Tell me, do you think it fits the book description? Is it how you imagined the Dursleys' house? Do you think it should have the extension or not? Do you think the kitchen should be extended? Do you think any rooms should be knocked through? As I say, this is a work in progress, and I am planning, ultimately, to bring in some interiors into this in typical tasteless Dursley style. So at some point I'll be doing that. I am quite busy at the moment, but at some point I will fit that in and put some interiors into this. I may change some of the layout, as I say, depending on what comments and feedback I get. So thank you very much for watching. As I say, this has been a bit of a deviation from usual. I don't intend making a lot of Harry Potter content, it's just this has been something I've wanted to really talk about for quite a while. Thank you very much, and goodbye.